what I'd like to talk to you about is stopping. And it's like that was actually the teaching of my teacher, Gangaji, and still is. And she said that was also the teaching of her teacher. And so the question is, what does that mean? What does it mean to stop? Often it said, stop the search. But actually it's what you can realize is this, you can stop it at more and more profound and less dense levels, more and more subtle levels. Like, when you meditate, you stop moving your body, at least in general. That's a very physical way of stopping. That's obviously not what was meant in that teaching, but it actually helps to stop even just at a physical level, to stop the doing, because we're so used to doing all the time. And at a more subtle level, the mind is a constant doing. It's a constant thinking about this, that, and the other. It's a focusing, we're always focusing on something we don't like or something that we want, something that we're resisting or something that we're looking for. So that's a more subtle doing. And so when Gangaji said stop, what she meant was stopping the search for enlightenment or awakening or whatever it is that you're looking for specifically. Awareness, self. And she also meant stopping the constant activity that's there in the mind, in the ego, the personality, whatever you want to call that. Because that's the more subtle doing that people don't even realize that is a doing, and it can be so helpful to realize that that is a doing, and it's not something that happens without you having a choice. It's like, most people, when they start meditating, they say, oh, my mind never stops. I can't do anything about this. Well, actually, that's not quite true. Yes, the mind doesn't ever stop, because when people are new to this search and this way of stopping, they don't know how to stop. That's true. But once you get the sense of it, it's actually quite easy to stop, even just for a second, even just for a split second. And of course, us being very habitual creatures, whatever habits we have, psychological habits, they will pull us back into more doing, more activity. So for example, if you're used to figuring things out, how to do this, how to do that, how to get what you want, how to avoid what you don't want, then that will be the activity that you're constantly engaged in. That's the habit. That's everybody's habit. That's the human habit. It's the habit of the human psyche. And when you see that, when you see how, right in this moment, you catch yourself, oh, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out how to not feel this. Or I'm just resisting feeling something that doesn't feel good. Then there's a choice. Then you can stop the mind activity or the figuring things out or the resisting. And often it helps to also just take a breath. Like when you see what's happening, just for a moment, just for a moment, take a breath and stop doing that. And what that does is it kind of interrupts the circuit, the neural circuit that you're in. And it actually creates a new neural pathway. It creates a neural pathway that's about stopping. Even at that psychophysiological, neurophysiological level, it's good to realize that even if you don't manage to interrupt yourself for very long, you're still interrupting yourself. You're still interrupting that habitual circuit, that habitual activity, that habitual way of feeling and thinking about yourself or about others. You're interrupting that for long enough to create a different kind of habit, new habit. And more deeply in that stopping, there's always also the possibility of catching a glimpse of what's really here, underneath all the doing, or behind or beyond all the activity. And what's really here is you. What's really here is this loving awareness that animates all this activity, that's seemingly, ultimately self-destructive, but it arises from that awareness, from that source. So just in this moment, you can stop the listening or the watching and take your attention back to yourself and notice what's here. What's here as you're sitting and you're listening. There's an awareness here in you that hears. knows, that understands, that feels. And that's what you're looking for. That can only happen if you find a way out of those loops of where the awareness usually circles, where it contracts into. So you stop and you move out of that contraction back into a much more spacious beingness. And you can't do it. It's only by letting go of doing that you can find that. It's only by stopping all the doing, even the subtle doing, even the doing of the mind and the emotions and the habitual psychological circling that happens. But because you are that awareness, you can become aware of that circling, that loop, those loops that you get into. And you can stop. Just for a split second. And breathe. Give yourself a break. Then you could add the question, if I'm stopping, then what's here? If I take my attention from what I'm focused on, whatever doing, even subtle doing I'm focused on, if I take my awareness away from that and back to myself, what's here? So that's what stopping means. And even when we've had glimpses of who we are, what's here, the awareness, the love, the spaciousness, it's always worth coming back to that, because then it's like, you're creating a new loop, a new habit that's a beneficial one that takes you back to yourself, back to more glimpses, or back to what you already know quite deeply. That's a habit that's worth, developing. So it's worth stopping many times a day. And even if you don't get a glimpse, doesn't matter, just breathe. Even that is just very relaxing for the whole system. Very beneficial. And it's that leads you back to yourself. Sooner or later. I love Krishna Das. He has this phrase, I only remember half of it these days. He talks about chanting doing this, but stopping does the same thing. Slowly but inevitably, I think he says. It leads you back to yourself. So stop is a good word to remember. Always.